2011 special meeting of the Littleton Planning Commission. First thing, you guys should have in front of you the draft agenda. Oh, yeah, roll call.
Commissioner Bagnell.
Present.
Commissioner Buckenstead.
Here.
Commissioner Coronado. Commissioner Elrod. Commissioner Gallagher.
Here.
Commissioner Newfinky.
Here.
Commissioner Metcalf.
Here.
Commissioner Ranville.
Here.
Commissioner Samuelson.
Here.
So the agenda for today's meeting is to talk about the goals and procedures for the meeting, to have a almost final, or as much as we can get final, review of the draft plan, which includes the purpose, the boundaries and maps, visions, downtown planning principles, and the executive summary. And hopefully we will have time to address the appendices. And then the next agenda item is tasked to complete the plan in the process for the plan review and adoption. And then the next item on the agenda is to revisit the meeting goals, format, schedules, and upcoming meetings. So any changes to the agenda?
Make a motion to accept it as written.
Okay. Any second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay. So then we have in front of us the proposed procedures for reviewing the draft downtown plan. And Matt had put together this document and he suggested that the chair appoints a timekeeper for the meeting. The chair indicates which section of the document we're working on and provides a brief statement regarding the goals of the section. And the chair identifies the paragraphs that we're working on and doesn't read it out loud. And then we allow individual feedback and team discussion regarding the general content of the paragraphs. So is it the right direction? Do we have the right message? Is it clear? Is it factual? Is it consistent and concise? And that we want to limit to 5 minutes. And then the commission votes to remove entirely or accept the content as is, or accept with updates, or continue the discussion for another 5 minutes. And in assuming a vote of acceptance, the chair will allow 1 minute for feedback regarding grammatical issues. And we'll just continue with the rest of the paragraphs. And it's along the lines of what we talked about at the last meeting. So any comments? You guys agree that we should use the format?
Sounds good to me.
Yes. Yeah, everybody's agreed? Yeah. Okay. So now the first thing is we need a timekeeper. You'll do it? Okay.
I'll split it with you, Steve. You do the first half, I'll do the second half.
What's that?
I'll split it with you. You do the first half,
You
I'll
want,
do the second
you
half.
can do it. That's fine.
No, that's okay. Start off. Actually, it'd be better if I did because
Okay.
I'll have less input. I mean, I read through everything and I'm pretty much fine with everything. So.
Okay, so Dennis, do you want to start off with?
Copies to us in there. I went through it and made some kind of suggestions as well. What I saw is things that I thought I'd heard you say and maybe weren't in here, or things that I thought you might want to think about. So I've got those in here. And we had talked about actually putting the executive summary at the end, since it's the summary. I thought that we might best go through the other sections first and then get back to the executive summary, if that makes sense to everybody. So the thought was we'd actually start with the introduction, which was the purpose. Yeah, this is all those are all out. Who does not have these, though, so if you could do those, it's the agenda and the proposed proceedings, and then I think that's kind of later, so. So we want to start with
The
introduction, which is a purpose.
Okay. So, and if you notice, Dennis has made some changes to the purpose. So I'm kind of having to look at both my documents here that exist, the new document Dennis submitted and the purpose here.
And what I did was I just went in and put in comp plan as the name for the conference plan. And then I also talked about the fact that this is a neighborhood plan covering the neighborhood, which is a central area. And then I talked a little bit more about the hearing process and the fact that the council holds a second public hearing and considers adoption. So trying to clarify that a little bit. And then same thing over in the box. I actually changed that because we expanded on a summary of the results of the citywide survey. Linda actually wrote up an entire public outreach section, so we've got that in the appendix now, so I changed that. So again, it's that kind of change I was looking at in terms of either procedural or something I thought that was, you want to talk about. But if you don't agree with any of those, that's great too.
So should we start the very first paragraph in the introduction? And, all right, so looking at Dennis's statements, any changes or concerns there? I would propose deleting that was called the central area, the neighborhood that was, just saying the neighborhood called the central area.
My set doesn't have an introduction in it.
So, oh, really? Well, let's get you
I'm
to
going to go through some pages. It's in the back.
Start in the back? Yeah.
On
But it should be on page.
executive summary, vision.
Page 6.
downtown.
Saving paper, I go on both sides.
Yeah, it's on both sides, sorry.
So no concerns? Should we, what do you guys think of deleting the that was and just saying called the central area?
That's fine.
Okay, should we vote? So all those,
What do we vote on?
we're voting on the first paragraph.
Okay, to take out that was,
That was, and using Dennis's language.
everything except that was. I can live with that.
All those in favor? And I think we might be 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
That was good.
Carry that time on then.
So, the second paragraph. Any concerns? I just have a couple suggestions in the second sentence, deleting within it. So these recommendations are guidelines for future actions and are designed, and then the next sentence, all land use regulations, blah, 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 are designed to help implement, just get rid of help, designed to implement the adopted plan.
I think it's a help.
Okay. So keep the help in, and what do you think about deleting the within it?
I think that's a good idea.
Where's the within? Sorry,
It's the second paragraph.
recommendations within. Oh.
Yeah.
Within it. I make a motion that we approve this as amended without within it
And including the help.
and leave help in.
All those in favor? Dave is against. Then next paragraph.
Just under the category of the extra 1 minute, I think in the box, within a plan horizon of 20 years, not 20 year.
Yeah. So should we address the box then?
No, I think that's an easy fix.
The only thing I would add is, I would suggest that this box in particular could be part of an overarching introduction, since it's just a chapter of the greater comprehensive plan.
So instead of doing a call-out box, actually having it as a paragraph?
Or just removing it, because there's probably, I mean, since this is just a chapter of a greater document, right? Don't we have an
Right.
introduction at the start of a greater document? Not yet? Okay,
Well, we have one in the current document, certainly. Yeah.
okay. I mean, I'm not stuck on that. I'm just saying if we have an introduction, it would be duplicative, but if we don't, then let's leave
To
it
some
as
degree,
is.
this will stand alone too for now, at least, but you're right, so they're going to be incorporated in the large document.
All right, then
So
I'll
the-
drop that.
So Matt, you want to keep that in as opposed to delete it?
Yeah. Yeah, and just add S to year, and then we're good.
Okay, and should we go ahead and vote on that call-out box? So all those in favor? And it's Dave and Linda against. And so that takes us to the third paragraph. to ensure that the plan reflects. Any questions or concerns? My only suggestion was to delete on the third sentence from this effort, so with the information they received and with additional professional input. I don't know what you guys think.
I second that.
What were you, what were you going to delete?
And the third sentence with the information they received from this effort, and delete from this effort.
Delete from this effort? Mm-hmm. From this effort
And with additional professional input, the planning commission held in-depth discussion.
How would that read, Linda?
I'm not following you.
How do you want that to read?
With the information they received and with additional professional input.
Okay. Remove from this effort.
I'd leave it as is.
Yeah, I think we'll leave it as is, because received from where?
Yeah.
That's my question.
So all those in favor of that paragraph, are we ready to vote?
As is.
As is without, okay, that's seeing Dave against. How about the second call-out box? Any recommended changes?
No.
Nope. So all those in favor of that call-out box? Seeing Dave against. And now to go to, how are you doing on time?
We haven't hit 5 minutes yet
Okay.
on a paragraph, so people must have really prepared for this, so that's good.
So now we're on how to use this plan, and
You made no changes to this paragraph?
No.
I move we accept it as written.
As is?
I second that.
okay, all those in favor?
No changes on boundaries and maps?
The second paragraph,
And I'd just like to add, Commissioner Coronado, I think, would vote with this, just so you know. He said okay as is on the introduction, so,
I do have copies of that too, if you're.
yeah, you pass those out. I was just, want to make everybody aware of that.
okay, the second paragraph under how to use this plan?
Oh, you have one?
So I'm making notes on it.
Okay, good.
You made no changes to that?
Any other comments?
I make a motion we accept it as is.
Okay, all those in favor? Seeing everyone except Dave? And then the boundaries and map?
I make a motion we accept it as is.
All those in favor of accepting it the way it is? Okay, Dave's against. And now the orientation map, we do not have the orientation map yet, right?
Correct. Is it the same, this other large map, or?
What it's going to be is just kind of show where downtown is in the metro area, kind of South Metro.
Oh, okay.
So it'll kind of show Littleton and the relationship to the surrounding communities. Kind of, they got a larger sense of us.
Will this map show exact boundaries?
It'll show, yeah, at that scale, it's sort of exact.
Sort of exact. Okay.
Although that's an important point, I suggest that we do show the boundaries so that we're clear of what this
Yeah.
particular plan is intended to represent
Oh,
as a
right.
subset of Littleton as a
Yes,
whole, right?
it'll show downtown, the study
Right.
area. So, yeah,
Okay.
that's what it's intended for.
Okay,
I'd just like to make a motion that we allow just a minute of silence just to read what the change is since between, which isn't great TV, but
sure, and it's just for those sections that changed?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just so we can catch up, because
Okay.
I read it all before, but
There are a few changes.
Yeah.
This was, again, kind of standing back and just saying, okay, I want to at least bring this up to you guys before you finish. And it seems like there are two elephants in the room in terms of assets that downtown has. that really come into how healthy a retail district is how good it is for pedestrians. And one is the fact that the foresight of the community many years ago and with the comp plan was to talk about depressing the railroad. If that road were still at grade level and we were having to deal with those crossings on Main Street and Alamo, we were still having to deal with looking at the train and hearing the coal trains going through every day. Downtown and Main Street would be a very different place. I think it's a huge asset that I think we should give acknowledgement to. The other one is the fact that we've got sunshine all the time, and so you can go and have you can sit on the patio and you can walk around comfortably, and really it's a great place for if we're going much better than a lot of climates. For actually having the kind of activity that we want to have downtown. So those are the two things. But again, it's take it or leave it. The two it's I thought helped the just the context a little bit.
So in the vision, we had no changes in the first section, so do we want to vote on that? Oh, pardon?
I wanted to, the last sentence up there, the Main Street District will be a local and regional attraction and also the Center for Community Celebrations.
So to
Add also?
I'd like to put the word also in there. Oh,
I can support that.
Any other changes? Ready to vote? For the first paragraph, amending it?
Actually, can I, yeah, just one second, I'm trying to read my notes from last week.
It looks like attraction should have an S on it. Oh, any local attraction. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Great.
Also is just redundant, isn't it? And also?
it helps the flow of the sentence.
Or wordsmithing it.
That,
I think it's just wordsmithing. I think it's redundant and
well,
also.
wordsmithing is what we're doing right now. That's all we're doing right now is wordsmithing it.
So I'm sorry that not necessarily, I don't have the words here as far as what to change, but what I think is missing from, or maybe it's the introduction to the vision where downtown will inevitably grow and change over time, but retain its historic, et cetera, et cetera. So I'd like to see us try to be very succinct and call out our vision is, so that is clear. And it may be, our vision is to maintain the character of a small town center while one thriving from economic development and vitality through mixed use, residential, so there's three, sorry. One being thriving from economic development through vitality of mixed use and residential, and two, a destination for activities and regional attractions. So my point is, I think we have to clearly call out the vision is X. So I think that statement is missing. We talk about what will happen, it will change, and what it is, but we're not being very specific of what our vision is. That's what I'm commenting on.
Can we call out saying our vision of downtown is downtown will inevitably grow and keep the same context of the words there?
Did anyone have a similar feedback on that front? That does not feel
We can put
clear?
that in there, but we don't need to gut the sentence and completely change it. I think that we should just say, our vision is downtown will inevitably grow and change over time. And Main Street District, local regional attraction. And I gotta kind of agree with Kurt here that also is kind of redundant. And the Center for Community Celebrations. So I'd like to add, and I'll make a motion, that we add our vision is to the before downtown and leave the rest of it as is.
And
So, more from a grammar on that point, our vision is that downtown, is to allow that downtown will inevitably grow. So I don't know that our vision could be that it would inevitably grow. It's allow it for growth and change over time.
Are we at 5 minutes?
There's a motion on the floor.
4 minutes.
Okay, so the motion is to keep this, add our revision is that downtown will, and.
Know that our vision is downtown will inevitably grow. If you want to say downtown Littleton, I'll accept that or amend it to that.
And to exclude the also?
Yes. Well, leave it as is. Add our
As
vision
is after-
as is, and leave the paragraph the same.
Okay. So all those in favor of that language? Seeing 3, the motion fails.
Okay.
So,
Just not sure I heard it all well.
well, let me mention this. Craig said in his comments, he said he would like to see some emphasis that downtown is the heart of Littleton and an important regional center of commerce. The strength of Littleton is that it is one of the few places that has preserved its small-town character and that is valuable to its residents and its future. So I
make a motion that we extend for another 5 minutes.
all those in favor of extending for another 5 minutes? Seeing 2 against. Okay, so any motion for a change of language for the first paragraph? Do we want to take a vote on accepting the language as is?
Make a motion to accept the language as is.
We have a second. All those in favor of accepting the language as is? So we have everybody except Dave. And do you want to take a few seconds to read the second paragraph?
I'm confused about the
Are we
fourth.
going with the paragraph or Dennis's new?
Dennis is new. Yeah, Dennis is new.
The fourth bullet point down, its scale. I'm not sure that means anything to me.
You're not sure what?
Would downtown will make the most of its assets, which include bullet point 4, its scale. I don't follow that at all.
I think the idea is that it's low scale, it's kind of primarily 1- and 2-story buildings, and it's not very dense, it's pretty,
I think he means, why say its scale? We're not saying its historic structures, its mountain views, its access, et cetera, et cetera. So
Well,
why just suddenly stick its in
And I
there?
questioned it, I guess, we could certainly change it. It seemed to me that scale by itself was more nebulous than some of the others, but I can certainly see that argument too.
So then elaborate on what it is about the scale that we're looking for.
Yeah.
Are you talking about design standards or?
Scale,
scale.
I think just existing, it's more the existing character, kind of what it has currently. It's just the fact that we have kind of a small town scale to us. We're in terms of, we only have 4 blocks of Main Street. We don't have a lot of retail. We have no big buildings really.
What we've said in the past is we've tried to get at human scale or pedestrian scale or something that brings it down so somebody can wrap their head around it. So why not stick with something like that instead of trying to come up with a new term for it?
Okay.
Steve?
Can I just add
Yes.
a couple? I mean, I would just add pedestrian scale in front of that and take out the its. That's all you got to do.
Pedestrian scale?
It seemed like it needed an adjective of some sort or something in there. Yeah, so that's what you refer.
I mean, you're talking about a walkability of pedestrian when you're talking before, so.
So the proposal is to add pedestrian. Any other suggestions?
Yeah. Going off of Craig's suggestion on vision, might be the important regional center of commerce.
So add that as a bullet point?
Yes.
Regional center of commerce.
Yes.
I agree.
I could support that.
Okay, any other comments?
I have a question about the railroad depression. Is there another word that might
I've worked it, in other words,
Being from a
Valley,
railroad-
Arroyo.
How about railroad/street separation? Because really, that's what we're looking at,
Being
is the
from a railroad
separation.
family, we always called it an underpass if a railroad was going under
Oh,
something.
really?
else.
Oh, okay.
But it wasn't
Okay.
really going under, it was just
Well,
See,
it's going under the street
But I
traffic.
think
Yeah.
most
If we're
people
going
would be,
over the street traffic, it would be
Yeah.
called an overpass in the
Okay.
railroad language. So
Okay.
I think
And
more people
depression
would be
just
less
sounds
confused
depressing.
by that.
Bill, I think so too. I tried to find another word, yeah.
That phrase was brought up when they built it, and I think that you're probably correct on that underpass thing.
Okay.
Railroad
That's
underpass.
what the railroad would call it, an
Okay.
underpass.
Glenn, you want to chime in on this? In my experience in planning and otherwise, an underpass is when the road goes under the railroad, not the other way around. And in this case, what we're really talking about is, we don't care about the depression, okay? It isn't the depression, it's the separation of the street and the railroad. That's what drove this thing, was 5 o'clock traffic backing all the way up to the river.
The other advantage, of course, is just the noise stays in there because it is sunken. So it has other advantages as well. You don't see it. You don't see the coal trains.
Well, it's the phrase that local people are used to using.
So do we have any recommended
Depression. Depression.
grade separated?
Railroad grade separation, I like that.
Could you repeat that real quick?
Change in the depression to railroad grade separation.
Okay.
Okay, any other changes? So we have 3 changes. One is changing its scale to pedestrian scale, changing depression to railroad grade separation, and then adding an important regional center of economic
What was that phrase? Commerce and.
commerce. Okay, can't read my writing. Any other changes? So should we vote on it? Okay, all those in favor? Seeing everyone? And then how about the call-out box?
It's fine to me.
I would like to suggest getting rid of the breadth of, and in doing so. So it says, is the intent of this plan to build on downtown Littleton's asset to guide downtown's future development and to provide rich business and retail environment, a diversity of housing and center of government and education.
Did you drop the S off of asset?
Or at least you meant to.
No, I didn't.
Okay, so you want to build on downtown Littleton's assets and get rid of the breadth of, okay.
Since we already have downtown Littleton, can we drop the second downtown 4 words later? I mean,
Yeah.
Its future?
just to guide future development.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Guide the future, I mean, you
Or-
need something.
We'll take the "its" that we dropped from scale and stick.
All right, so
Hopefully, people know which development we're talking about.
any other changes? So the 3 changes, all those in favor of accepting the modifications with those 3 changes? And seeing that, everyone's for that? And then we have careful management, the last paragraph?
At least now the last one makes sense, because before this, we had ignored anything of economic impact up in the list above.
I move for it unchanged.
I'll second that.
Right, all those in favor? Accepting that? Now, does anybody feel that we need to do something else with Craig's comments? Like the strength of Littleton is one of the few places that has preserved its small-town character and is valuable to its residents and future. I think we say that.
Do you have
I
Chris?
think we've said that.
Pardon?
I think we've said that.
Yeah.
Does everybody agree?
We're missing, I think the one point he's making here is this small-town character. I don't know that we called that out, and I do think that is, I agree with his comment of that being distinct about Littleton.
We've got the small-town character. The only thing we're missing is the heart of Littleton.
You're right.
A phrase that has reared its ugly head repeatedly in the last 3 years, only to be slapped down more times than
And how
not.
did we change it the last time? We didn't use Heart of Littleton. We
Took it out altogether.
Yeah.
Sorry, missed that.
So
Are we leaving that out? Is that what we're doing?
Craig's suggestions? Unless you guys want to include it. No? Okay. All right, so are we done with vision? So that takes us to downtown planning principles, right? That's page 13, I think?
Page 13. I apologize. Number 2.
Move that we allow a minute to read this.
So yeah, let's just take a, let me know when you're ready. Very quiet in here.
Just sing for the minute.
I'm ready to go whenever everybody else is.
Yeah, whenever you guys are ready.
I can live with anything on that page.
I have a minor comment. I have a minor comment on connectivity and access, the final sentence, and easily found by potential parkers. I would recommend and easily accessible, as we're talking about connectivity and access, so accessible.
Yeah, you know what I'm not happy with that either. I'm not sure that accessible is it either, 'cause I think it's partially, we talk about signage because people don't know where the parking is. So partially it's not just being able to get to it, but knowing where it is. And I don't know how to say it, but maybe accessible does it. Maybe that's enough. But the intent was to say they'll be able to figure it out with a whole lot of
I just
signage.
changed the end. It's easily found by visitors to the area.
So can we go through this paragraph by paragraph and then address that paragraph when we get to it? So, any comments on the first paragraph?
I move we accept first paragraph as amended by
Okay, good move.
Dennis.
Yeah, all those in favor of the first paragraph? Seeing Dave against, and this,
Does principles need to be capitalized?
I thought that everything, each of these characters should, vision, goals, policies, implementation, and policies, and principles all should be capitalized. We could go either way. I just thought to identify that they're these specific principles for this plan, I'd capitalize them,
But we didn't capitalize it the first time it appears.
oh, we didn't?
and it will be edited.
Should be, well,
Yeah,
Kelly
it
will be edited.
to
Kelly will
make
be
it
edited.
consistent with all those city policies.
you're right. The first one should be
All right.
capitalized if it's going to be. Thank you.
How about the call-out box, the definition of principles? I personally am not sure what it's saying, and I would like to exclude it, but
Second that.
Yeah.
all those in favor of excluding that call-out box? That is unanimous. And so that takes us to small-town character. Any comments on that?
How many intact neighborhoods do we have?
What was the question?
Really?
Dan?
He asked how many intact neighborhoods we have. Jenny, you wanted to say something?
I just had one small, I usually don't have a wordsmith, but instead of lack of tall buildings, to put absence of tall buildings.
Any other, oh, Steve?
And what do you refer to as tall? People could take that in many different ways.
Over 12 stories.
There you have it.
Well, there's a height requirement
80 stories?
in Littleton. So whatever the height requirement is the maximum anybody's going to build a building, right? So I don't think we need to define what tall is in here. We just need to say that there ain't any here. Correct?
That was the thought.
So, any other proposed changes?
I'm going to pick up on Steve's idea earlier about enjoyable pedestrian environment, not walking. I mean, there's more to being a pedestrian than just walking, and I think that's what we're really trying to get at here with all that we're talking about with little urban parks and rest areas and seating areas downtown along the street. We're really talking pedestrian, not walking.
So are you suggesting a change, or?
Yes,
Instead of the enjoyable walk?
pedestrian instead of walking.
Where is that, Dave? I'm sorry.
Last,
Oh, on the last sentence.
the end of the last,
Oh.
next to the last word in the small
Enjoyable
town.
pedestrian environment?
Right.
That sounds good to me. I can live with that.
I would add one other thing. I would suggest in the first sentence, downtown will retain as defined instead of as it is.
Yeah, I can support
That's
that.
me.
too. That's too wordy.
So you're saying downtown will retain as defined its small-town character?
No.
Retain a small-town character as
Retain a
defined.
small-town character as defined by its pedestrian scale, absence of tall buildings, intact neighborhoods, historic structures, diverse land uses, and enjoyable pedestrian environment.
Okay, any other recommended changes?
I make a motion to accept this paragraph as amended.
Okay, all those in favor of accepting the paragraph? That is unanimous, and we're going down to quality design. Any comments?
Craig's list, have everybody look at that.
You think he's suggesting rewording or just making sure we catch these things in the statements?
I think he's suggesting that we make sure to capture the context.
Yeah, what he said is no wordsmithing here, but would like each principal to emphasize a few key points. So as long as we're recognizing those points, I think we're in keeping with what his thoughts were.
So
We are recognizing that throughout this document, right? So does it necessarily need to be stated in this bullet point? I don't think so. I think quality of design, this bullet point is fine as far as I'm concerned, and I make a motion to accept it as written.
Steve?
So does that mean we can't make suggest
No,
changes?
it means that you get to vote on what you want to do. If you want to talk about it, discuss it, now's the time.
Well, I don't think we need the whether public or private.
Why not? Why would you want to change that?
What does whether public or private do for the paragraph?
Actually, it brings to mind something the city made sure they did when we expanded this building, is to make sure that we follow the same rules, the same guidelines as private development would have been expected to follow.
Sorry.
So was that called out because we wouldn't, if it was a public building, we wouldn't have to go through the same process as a private developer?
Well, I would think that this says that a public building has to go through the same project, same
Does
hoops
this
as a
document
private.
need to specify that, or isn't that just part of overall planning? That's a question.
I don't know, I
I
haven't
think
seen
there are
it.
questions about that sometimes.
I haven't seen it
Are
stated
we
anywhere
oversight?
in anything I've read since I've been on the commission, so.
And I can give you lots of examples of cities that put out, the planning department, for example, will put out a document on design qualities and so forth that the public works people don't necessarily pick up. And so they may go ahead and build a building that is not in compliance with the design standards because they don't go through the same review processes.
That sounds like an issue about the process, not about this document, though. I mean, this document isn't intended to define that
I think it needs to be
process.
stated in the plan, because 20 years from now, there's going to be a different council in there. There's going to be different planning commission. There's going to be, people with different ideas.
I come back to the importance of the process needs to be, the planning process needs to be documented, that all public, private, and any others need to follow that process, not that, I'm with Steve here, that to me, this should be assumed or accounted for in a different.
I guess part of it is that this provides direction for the processes as well, in terms of how do the processes work and who do they affect. So I think to some degree you're providing direction for not only the design standards and guidelines.
I think what we're
zoning,
saying
but
is that
also
they're not
process.
excluded from the plan.
And currently, you're right. I mean, the city council and planning commission have been very good, and the staff's been very good about saying we have to follow the same process. We certainly could have a different mentality at some point. It also helps, I think, as we go to the county or we go to the postal service or we go to somebody else to just say, we really encourage this. And in some cases, with federal government, you can't control them. But if we have something in place, it does help a little bit.
So the motion is to strike whether public or private. How many of you support?
No, the motion is to accept it as written.
Accepting as is.
Oh. But then you wanted to
Well,
change.
yeah, because
wanted to talk about it,
he jumped in with the motion before anybody, before I had a chance to say anything about it.
And there's been no second. There's a
Second.
motion on the table, waiting for a second.
Second the motion.
Okay, all those in favor of accepting the quality design as is, we can go back and amend it if we wanted to strike that language. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 people against. So,
4-4, so.
4-4, so motion fails.
okay. So Steve, do we want to take your?
Yes, I'd like to bring out the motion to get rid of whether public or private.
Do we have a second?
Or second.
Okay, all those in favor? So we have 2 people. Motion fails.
How we doing on time?
We're 20 seconds away.
Okay, so
We can vote to extend it if we want.
do we want to delete it? Do we want to?
I think when our 20 seconds time run out and we don't vote to extend it, it goes in as written.
Quick, Steve, did you have something else you wanted to question in that besides that one phrase?
I would suggest we extend some time here,
So all those in favor of extending some time?
because we just voted to do it as is, and that didn't pass, so why would we have it go through because we ran out of time?
Yeah.
Right.
I
we wanna be
suggest
consistent.
I second that we extend.
Okay, all those in favor of extending the time? And so 1, 2, all right, 1, 2, 3 against, the motion carries. So
So it goes in as written.
is that your motion?
No, my motion's been tabled or walked down, but
But that
nobody's got a better idea. Nobody wants to extend the time, so.
We did. We
We
did.
just voted to extend
5
the
to
time.
3.
Extend the time.
We had 5
Oh,
people.
I'm
vote
sorry,
for
I
it,
have
so we
5 in
extended
favor?
the
Okay,
time.
well, talk about it.
So is there another motion with regard to that paragraph? No?
Can you give us a second?
Pardon?
Can we have a second?
Yeah.
Good 5 minutes.
Maybe if you strike whether public or private and start the sentence with all new development.
I can support that.
I'd like to come up with a motion of striking whether public or private and starting it with all new development.
Second.
Any comments? All those in favor of accepting quality design with all new developments, the sentence starting with all new developments, all those in favor? So with Kurt and Dave against, that carries. Economic development. Any comments?
I missed Saturday night's fireworks.
That was very good fireworks for the Wild on Littleton.
I had a 9-month-old that was an hour overdue her bedtime.
So for all of those wondering what happened, a soda bottle exploded here. So any comments on the economic development? Dave?
I've said this before, but I'm going to raise it again. Okay. So we're going to maintain a business environment that retains and attracts business. How? What are we defining as an environment that retains and attracts businesses? What qualities are we going to institute through planning or plan review or procedures that we believe will produce that? Or are we just saying we want it to be nice for everybody? Because that doesn't mean anything to me.
Well, and I think a part of the goals, policies, and implementation strategies, we kind of list out what we want in economic development.
I think it gets into your other policies too that weren't specific to that, but when you talk about parking issues, and it certainly is talking about, is it viable for businesses downtown? Do you have the right parking ratios? So I think there are all those questions as well. I think connectivity, I think there's a
Except
lot
that
of
we're
flexibility.
studiously avoiding doing anything about the parking issue, so yeah, that's what I meant. That's exactly an example of what I mean.
I can give you another example in lower downtown when I was working there prior to it becoming Lodo. There were broken sidewalks. There was not a streetscape. One of the advantages that you have here is a really nice streetscape. You have the lighting that attracts people and brings people downtown. And I think that I think it talks about will maintain a business environment. I think you've already got it.
So, any other comments regarding this? Any suggested language changes? Steve?
I think to go with Dave, you could just add into this, promoting the unique, character of Main Street. And then that kind of goes to what Dave is talking to. At least you're talking towards something. The promotion of the characteristics that you're talking about and the other qualities. Instead of just saying economic development, we have the same in our vision statement, but that somewhere in this you add the promotion of economic and business environment through the maintenance or maintaining unique character of Main Street.
And we talk about that, maintaining unique character in the vision.
In the vision.
Yeah, we had the character covered. We want the economic development we're working on.
This just doesn't cover Main Street. This is the
Yeah,
entire.
this is a
Well, not Main Street, but, you're telling that through your planning process and your comp plan that you're going to help promote that economic viability.
But then I think you're getting into the policies in this.
Yeah, we're doing a little bit bigger than just the
Right.
downtown. We've got a little bit bigger scope of what we're looking
But I
at.
don't think you want to get into specifics in this paragraph.
Well, no, and I mean, this is an overview, right? The guideline?
But it's the overview for the downtown.
Principle.
It's the downtown planning principles.
And we're really not talking about the sidewalks and the streets and the walkability and all that, because we're talking about that in the next item down, public realm. Here we're talking about business environment. So what is it we think we're going to do through comp plan that's going to maintain, add to, contribute to the business environment as a vital element in the vitality of downtown? And all we're expressing is good wishes. And, okay, never mind.
All right, we're running short on time, right?
I didn't start the clock,
Oh.
so.
All right, the clock starts now.
I just started a minute ago.
Any suggested language changes to that?
I don't know, go ahead, Dan. Go ahead, Dan. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say to you, what specifics do you want to add? I see what you're saying.
And I agree with you, it's a feel-good statement, but what's wrong with that?
Because when push comes to shove, when somebody has to make a decision that this is supposedly providing guidelines for, it doesn't provide any guidelines. And trust me, the business environment that is comfortable for somebody who operates the Lido Wine Store and somebody who operates Penzi Spice or one of the restaurants, not the same business environment.
No.
But as Linda stated, it's the policies and the implementation strategies in order to maintain a business environment is in the body of the document.
Recognizing that anything you do for a business is not necessarily for the pedestrians or for the residents. Okay? If you're going to express a principle that's going to seek a balance between those, recognize some characteristic or some balance point that you're looking for to keep those working together. Otherwise, it's just a general statement that somewhere, someone down the road can interpret to mean anything they or a new business applicant wants it to mean.
So your concern is primarily with the last sentence, where it talks about the residential community being interdependent, both will be fostered to benefit the each. Is that where your concern or greater issue is? Or
my concern is we're making a general statement that has no content, it has no tangible meaning, that somewhere we're expressing confidence in the fact that it's going to give us something that it in no way, shape, or form assures us.
Do you have anything that you would want to change it to?
No, because
Or would you just want to dump it?
You asked, Sarah Jane, you had a small business in a retail.
To me, the
district like
question
this.
is,
Was there something that we're not proposing in this plan that you think might be useful in terms of something that's in the purview of what this plan covers that can create a business environment?
I guess what it says to me, I really like the economic gardening program that you have. And I think that really has a relationship to planning and to attracting businesses downtown. And this would be supportive of that. I also like the fostering both the residential community and the business community, because there will be conflicts. And it just calls for maybe calling for a balance would help make that sentence a little bit stronger.
why don't I just acknowledge that it's too late at this point to try and make this kind of a substantive change in what we're doing. These are general principles. There's little of substance in any of them. It's a general expression of broad intent, and we're going to have to depend on the goodwill and the integrity of people interpreting it later on to produce anything of effect.
I make a motion we accept it as written.
Okay, all those in favor of accepting it the way it's written? You have everyone except Dave. And now to public realm. Any comments?
Yeah, I'd like to add the word, similarly, sidewalks in commercial areas should provide places for people to enjoy the downtown area.
Get rid of and socialize?
No, and socialize, but I wanted to add the word area there, because otherwise, to enjoy the downtown.
Why don't you just strike the and socialize? And that clusters of benches for people to enjoy downtown.
That would be fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so any,
I'll second that.
okay. So any other proposals before we, the second sentence, downtown will be designed to provide pedestrian comfort. I don't really kind of understand pedestrian comfort, but maybe say will be designed to encourage walking instead of including pedestrian comfort? No? Jenny's like, no?
Oh, accessible is a good word. I see that Craig mentioned it in the public realm. So instead of comfort, I wonder if there's
Pedestrian friendly.
Accessibility.
pedestrian
Pedestrian friendly?
accessibility.
Accessibility, comfort, friendly?
Designed to be pedestrian friendly and encourage walking? Is that what you're suggesting?
I'm saying to change the word comfort to friendly.
I like
Does
that.
it make sense just to provide pedestrian friendly and encourage walking?
Well, I'm sorry.
I like your
Will
recommendation.
be designed to be pedestrian friendly
Yeah.
Encourage walking.
and encourage
Yeah.
walking.
Okay. Jenny, any comments on that?
That's okay. I know we mentioned accessibility later on, so.
Great, any other comments on that?
And then I wanted to bring, just talk about this part here. Sidewalk cafes and clusters of benches will be used to make the outdoor public spaces more welcoming, interesting, and attractive, with the word more, because otherwise we're saying that it's not welcoming, interesting, or attractive now.
Okay, what do you guys think?
I'm sorry, you want to add more?
Add more, because if you read the sentence without the word more in there, you're saying that right now it's not welcoming, interesting, or attractive.
About sidewalk cafes and clusters of benches will be used to ensure the outdoor public spaces remain welcoming, interesting, and attractive.
That'd be fine.
That's
Be fine, yep.
Will remain.
Okay,
Okay, let me modify my motion to have the public realm read. Public spaces, parks, sidewalks, streets, Public spaces, parks, sidewalks, streets, parks will be maintained and improved. Downtown will be designed to be pedestrian-friendly and encourage walking. Similarly, sidewalks in commercial areas should provide places for people to enjoy downtown. Sidewalk cafes, clusters of benches will be used to make the outdoor public spaces,
Ensure that the outdoor public space.
to ensure
Outdoor public spaces remain welcoming, interesting, and attractive.
The parks was repetitive in the first sentence,
Right, so we need to get rid of the second
right?
parts.
Yeah.
and then we want to include downtown area in the third.
No, that was broke down.
we dump the area.
Okay,
Dropped off the and socialized.
Join
Okay,
in.
we get this written down right now? To ensure the outdoor public spaces will remain or just remain? Just remain. Welcoming, interesting, and attractive. That's my motion. We accept that.
Second that.
all those in favor? Everybody except Dave? Sustainability?
Anybody have a problem with that?
Jenny? You're fine?
Yeah, I'm fine with it, so.
I'll make a motion to accept it as written.
All those in favor of that? Seeing all except Dave. Connectivity and access. So, Karina, you had some suggestions?
Yes, in the last sentence, to read, and easily accessible by visitors.
Okay,
Very good.
any other changes?
And easily accessible by visitors. And if we need to specify visitors to downtown, if we feel we need to make that distinction.
Where would
We
that
want to
be?
expand on visitors, residents.
The last
maybe, or
last
just-
sentence, so it would read, surface parking lots and parking structure will be integrated into the building pattern and easily accessible to visitors.
Yeah.
That works.
Accessed by or accessible to, one or the other.
So,
Easily accessible to visitors. Make a motion, we accept that as amended.
okay,
Second?
all those in favor? David against? And process.
Make a motion, we accept that as written.
One of the things that we did have talked to Craig earlier, and one of the things that he thought might be helpful was to just cross out process altogether and to add that sentence to the economic development because it was directly related to that. And there was some discussion that went both ways on that, so I'll just open it up.
Well, we can't do that because the first paragraph says the following 7 principles.
could change that.
The counter to that was that it really was going to be its own, it sort of is a separate issue from
I
economic.
think it should stand alone.
I agree.
The reason why I think it should be a standalone is that it's, I think one of the things we say throughout this comp plan is that we definitely need to look at the processes that the city has for development, and are there any opportunities for improvement, so this calls it out.
The only thing I think we're missing in that is, one of the things we started hearing from the beginning of our public outreach, and we heard with every group we talked to, was not just predictable, not just coordinated, simplify it. Get rid of the overlap, get rid of the redundancy, get rid of the circling back endlessly for one body or another. So somewhere in there, we need to add that.
So,
Need to streamline it.
so add all review
Simplify,
processes
simplify,
should be
streamline.
simplified,
Coordinated,
coordinated.
simplified, predictable, and adaptable.
I would suggest all review processes should be simplified, coordinated, predictable, and adaptable to varying conditions.
Okay. So any other comments on that? Should we go ahead and vote with?
I amend my motion to accept the revision.
All right, any seconds? And then let's vote.
Second?
All those in favor? And that is unanimous. And that takes us to,
The executive summary.
I make a motion, we have 2 minutes to read.
I second that.
I've got one question on the first paragraph. Second sentence, the primary regulation that supports plans and helps implement them is zoning. Don't the codes have something to do with that too?
They do, I think for the comp plan, it's primarily zoning.
Okay.
Because it's land use, and so it's really talking kind of big picture. Suzanne, you kind of agree, or Glenn? Yeah.
No?
Um,
Okay.
are you ready to,
That's time, yeah, so we're.
Yeah.
so let's take the first paragraph. Sorry.
Anybody have a problem with it?
I do.
Yes.
As somebody who's just coming off the streets, it would be, I don't understand what this is trying to say.
Well, where is this going to be in the book? Page 1 or page 27? Page 1?
Page 1.
Then we need to address that.
And I was proposing just to delete that altogether, and then maybe starting off with the ideas represented in this plan, Or maybe some other.
That's good. What if you put the introduction first?
Sounds good to me.
Very good. I don't know if people at home, the suggestion was maybe to put the introduction first and put the executive summary after that, so you have a sense of what the plan is trying to accomplish.
But I think the executive summary should be what we take to city council and show them, here, this is what we've done, and this is what was recommended to us, and this is the strongest document that we have to be able to communicate.
So this is going to be like a cover letter that we present to the city council?
Kind of. It should be able to stand alone, I think, to some degree.
Okay, well, then we need to work on the,
So
I
we're
hate
not-
the word wordsmith, but we need to do a little English throwing at it.
So we're not treating this as a intended, long-term, permanent part of the comp plan for the downtown area. This is an intro, an explanatory note, the cover that goes with this submission to
No,
the public.
it would stay, my understanding is that it would stay in the plan and be kind of a quick summary of, this is the executive summary, gives you the overview. These are the cliff notes, for what the plan says.
Remembering that we're going to be doing this for other areas throughout the city, are we going to do this same thing for every single section that we do?
That was the thought, is that we would have this format. We can certainly change it as we go, because I think we've got things that we're doing uniquely this time because it is more of a standalone than we would anticipate. So when you get to integrating, some of these things may go away, but you can kind of pick and choose what your format's going to be.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what we're doing here now is going to be kind of a template for what we're going to do in the future. And I think that a lot of it's going to be boilerplate stuff. I should hope so.
I think a lot of it is, I think Dave has a point in the sense that by doing it neighborhood by neighborhood, you don't have an overall introduction. And so as you go through that plan, you may want to change this, but because it's standing alone today and may stand alone for some time, you would include it now, and that may change as you add other neighborhoods. That's how I understand it.
Because in the course of discussion over the last 3 years, one of the things we've recognized is that a lot of the principles and the ideas, the concepts that we're developing in this first section, we're then going to have an opportunity or a need to extrapolate those to other areas of the city and into a community-wide section of comp plan, which right now, by the way, is the largest single section of the existing comp plan for good reasons. So the idea that this is fixed in stone, that all of this stuff is going to remain intact as we complete the comp plan process, rather than extracting a lot of this to general applicability, is rather naive, in my opinion, and based on what we've talked about for the last 3 years.
Well, it may change.
So, David, are you, I guess what I'm thinking, and I'm not sure that we're on, I think we're on the same page, but I'm not sure. Are you suggesting this is redundant and just to have the introduction instead?
No, I think it has a purpose, and it had an intention when it was first developed, and that was what I was implying. It is a temporary, it is an expedient to explain to the public and city council where we're coming from, what we're intending this for. Long term, you'd like to think it's all going to be, it's either all expressed in the various parts of the introduction or will be incorporated into the community-wide principles, goals, et cetera. But for right now, it's explaining to everybody, hey, this is what we're doing with this. This is what it's for. Understand that it's a small fragment, but a critical fragment of what's intended to be a much larger, more interrelated whole.
I appreciate that, because that's what I was driving at with the procedure, which I haven't stuck with all that well either, but was to sort of start this out by saying, this is what we mean to do with this page, what we
Right.
mean to accomplish with this page.
Right. For now.
Yeah.
So we're still in the first paragraph.
You had a motion to delete it
Delete it.
completely, and I would second that motion.
I would,
Jenny?
Well, I think it's very important to say, though, in the very beginning, that this is a guideline rather than a regulation. That's very important. So to delete it completely, we need to have that statement in there in the
Certainly, I
beginning.
think when you get into the full comp plan, you can delete it because it'll be somewhere else in the plan. But at this point, with standalone, I think it's one of the things people look for, because people are concerned that you're changing the zoning, you're actually setting up a regulation.
So this is going to be the cover letter to the city council.
But not exactly, but it's like that. I mean, this is the cliff notes where you're going through. And a lot of plans actually have an executive summary in them. So you might want to retain an executive summary for each neighborhood as you go through.
Okay.
You might want to get rid of the rest of the introduction, that talks about purpose and how to use the plan and the stuff that really is much more generic. This one's talking about the specific recommendations in this plan.
For this particular area of the city of
And then part of this you want to rewrite because you say somewhere else that, that it's a regulation. It's a guideline.
Well, I think this, like all plans, is kind of just, it doesn't flow well.
How about moving it to the end?
This proposed comp plan, since they got to vote on it, make them become part of the,
They just have to ratify it. They don't.
well, it's still proposed until they do it, right? So this proposed comp plan, like all plans, is a guideline. I just think it needs to flow a little bit better. It says everything that needs to be said, but it needs to flow a little better.
What was your recommendation, Tony?
This proposed comp plan, like all plans.
But this is not a comp plan.
This is the plan. You could just say this plan.
Downtown
Draft.
neighborhood plan.
This draft,
Oh, this won't be a draft.
okay.
Or this neighborhood plan.
City of Littleton Downtown Neighborhood Plan is a guideline.
How about moving that to the end, to the last paragraph?
No. I think this is the first thing this is the introduction to what we are looking at in all subsequent pages. I would propose this document is a guideline rather than a regulation, period, and then continue as is.
That says it.
So change it to this document
This document.
is a guideline. All right, all those in favor of that recommendation? Okay, seeing Kurt against. What about moving this to the, because, I mean, if you're throwing this in front of me, I still won't understand what you're saying. I might understand it if you put it on, at the end of the very last paragraph. Or have at least
Do you have something to propose to add?
move it to the end. No, just move that.
Let's start with
as
the
we
second
said.
paragraph.
Start with the second paragraph.
Start with the second paragraph?
Yeah. Or maybe modify that second paragraph to,
Does anybody recognize the basic principles of writing anything? It has 3 sections. You tell people what you're going to tell them, you tell them, and you tell them what you've told them. Okay, it sounds brainless, but it's important. And if we don't tell everybody up front, as what we've been talking about, this is what this is for. Simple terms, without the confusion, okay, without any possible confusion of, well, is it a regulation or not? If we just say, look, this document is a plan, not a regulation, and then go on and say, and in this plan, the ideas represented are da-da-da-da-da-da, you're at least giving them some heads up as to what they're about to hear. If you want to conclude it with, and elaborating on, this is a general plan or a guideline, fine. But you have to have an intro. You have to give them something, some idea of what they're about to hear.
so your suggestion is this document is a plan, the ideas, and then start off with the second paragraph, the ideas represented in this plan?
Sure. Something simple. It's a guideline, not a regulation. So first of all, nobody has to get panicky that this is imposing new regulations. Okay? It's a guideline. And then we're now going to tell you what the ideas in that guideline are intended to produce.
So are you suggesting that we take the first sentence of the first paragraph and then take the second paragraph and add to that and
I'm saying
delete or remove the primary regulation supports plans and helps implement them as zoning?
it sounded like the main objection to that first one was all the confusion about, well, then you throw zoning and what's a regulation and so fine, simple. This document is a guideline rather than a regulation. That's it. Simple statement up front, no confusion.
Okay, and I'm in agreement with that, but what do you do with the rest of that paragraph?
Strike it. And then if Linda wants something at the bottom, pulling all the ideas together after we go through the ideas represented, the goals and policies, etc., summarize it at the bottom and how that really fits in as a guideline relative to zoning ordinances and design standards and guidelines and historic design standards and guidelines. Great. But we've told them it's something, simple idea. We develop the elements of that idea, and then we summarize it in how it works for the city. That's it.
Okay, how about this? The first sentence, this document, like all plans, is a guideline rather than regulation, in centered in capital letters, bold or whatever, and then start out with the second paragraph.
So say that again, this plan,
Just that sentence, this document, like all plans, is a guideline rather than a regulation. Bold in the center at the head of the page. And then start out with the second paragraph and incorporate the second part of the first paragraph somewhere else in the body of the statement.
At the end, I think it's a nice way to wrap it up and summarize it at the end.
Because that goes to your point, Dave, that simple, boom, there it is.
Right in your face. Yep. I second that.
all those in favor of that proposed language? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So Crane is against? So do we need to then take that second part and move it down to the end?
Well, let's,
Don't worry about moving it.
let's wait till we get to the end before we do it. I mean, just because I want to make sure it reads well, that's all.
Don't want it to lose it.
Yeah, and I won't let you lose it.
Put a big star down at the
Would you
bottom.
mind repeating that first sentence then as it was?
This document, like all plans, is a guideline rather than a regulation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Originally,
Yeah.
we said we were going to take out like all plans and just say document.
So this
This
document
document,
is
It's a guideline rather than a regulation.
See that we
Okay.
have consensus on that.
yeah. Okay. Well, we're working on paragraph 2.
Yeah, and so we're ready for another 5 minutes? Okay, I just want to make one comment that we jump from that to the ideas represented in this plan reflect the comments and opinions that the Planning Commission received. Well, the Planning Commission did a lot more than just receive comments from the public. I mean, we evaluated the existing comp plan. We had case studies. We did a lot of effort in addition to the public outreach.
So the comments and opinions that the planning commission received, and you're right, because that's all the work you did. You want to let them know that you weren't just sitting here drinking coffee all day.
Like Craig had said, the rigorous debates.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've said all along, there were some things that were a slam dunk. It was fairly plain that people had a consensus about some elements. There were other things that they appeared to be at odds on. We spent a lot of time trying to reconcile those different opinions through looking at other areas and through the vigorous debate. To ignore that and make it sound like, well, we just sampled opinions, that's underplaying seriously what we spent most of the last 3 years doing.
So how would you restate it? Would you say, as a result of the following activities?
As a result of our extensive bickering, arguing,
The ideas represented in this plan represent are the result of the following activities? Is that what you're kind of getting at?
No, a list is not what we're looking at in something like an
How
executive
about,
summary.
how about something like the plan, the ideas represented in this plan reflect an evaluation and review of comments and opinions from the outreach program in addition to,
case studies, and what other things
Something.
did you do?
I don't think we're going to rewrite it tonight. Okay, all that Linda and I both, I think, are trying to say is there are some important steps in this procedure. Important, not because we were involved in it and we have ego involved. Important to understand how this ended up the way it did. Okay, that the pieces came together not just through the vigorous debate or bickering, although there was a lot of that, no argument.
Right.
But those steps were very important to the process, and therefore were important to what we
And I think that needs to be mentioned, right?
Yeah.
It sounded like it was a review process that incorporated not only the comments and opinions, but also your knowledge, experience, et cetera, right? So I think it was a review process.
I would suggest along the lines of what you're saying, David, that we list the important steps that we need to have mentioned and make that a takeaway to rewrite this paragraph and move on to the next.
Works for
Is
me.
that what you suggested?
Because, and it isn't just a list, because it's the interaction and all that. When we did our research, trying to look for the things that we all agreed from the public comment, that we wanted to see the downtown area, how we wanted to see it develop. We went out to the other areas around the Front Range looking for things that they had done to produce that. Not just it happened, but what did they do to produce that? And how did those things work together? Or in the cases where they didn't succeed very well, what was it that undermined that? We talked with city staff about practical steps to take to produce the things we were looking for.
There's also will potentially be a document that explains everything that was done throughout the process, and that would include a lot of the different types of analysis that were done.
But I think this document needs to touch on the highlights of that. And at that point, I think somebody on a computer needs to go through it and list the things that you mentioned, a couple of things at the start of this discussion. Case studies and what else?
Yeah, let's just notate them now, and then we can move on.
And then
to
we
the next
can
paragraph.
redo this paragraph.
Case studies, we did height studies, we did.
Height studies,
We went to visit different
field,
communities, trips.
field trips, trips is kind of a,
Site visitations.
site visits, yeah, there you go. Trips is a dinky word.
But I think it's important so that the word you use is highlight some of those things. It doesn't mean that it has to be an all-inclusive list. But it's a highlight.
Just touch on them to let them know that we just didn't pick this out of the air.
Or even refer to that appendix or list them all.
In the appendix, yeah, we have pretty extensive list.
So we're up against time, so I move that we allow 2 more minutes.
I move we table this and let it go to staff.
I second Tony's motion I think we've provided the insight to staff, and if they can take a stab at rewording.
There goes all trade. Actually,
For those
I
of you-
think
Lightning, that,
Go ahead, Dave.
pretty loud.
I think about a year and a half ago, when we were starting to develop the different segments on urban design and parks and open space and that sort of thing, we worked on a section on introduction that had a lot of that stuff explained. So I think if we can resurrect some of that, we can start from there instead of reinventing the wheel, starting from scratch.
Okay. So move is to table it for that investigation, and we review that at the next session.
Yeah, Glenn, did you have a comment?
Nope.
So all those in favor of reviewing at the next session, is there, so that motion carries? So can we bring it, is there any way we can work on language and bring it tomorrow?
How's our schedule look for tomorrow?
But we can still bring language. The schedule's full,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean that we can decide not
Let me
to
at least
address
see
it.
what I can find in the
Okay.
old notes on what we had from a year and a half ago.
It was the one that we put together, the actual draft we did?
We had one that we had in November of 2009, and then again in January of 2010.
Right.
We'd broken up into 2-person groups, and we each developed sections. And I thought, was it you and me or Craig and I? You and I or Craig and I worked on that whole introduction thing, so it's out there someplace.
I guess one thing I just want to make sure is that this doesn't slow down at all the process of getting this completely revised so that we can look at it and approve it. So, so by shifting it to staff, that we keep the momentum
I
going.
think it's more, as I say, I think a lot of it's out there already, and I don't see any reason why it should slow us down. But it's important. If we're saying what this is our way of introducing it to the public and introducing it back to city council. It's important that we say, look, here's what you told us, what you charged us with doing, and here's how we went about it. Here's how we fit it together to come up with something that's usable. I think it's important that the city council and public hear that.
This is our PowerPoint presentation.
Yes. It's the fireworks on this
I
side.
totally agree. I just
Yeah, well, we all agree.
table it for that, so.
Let's move on.
So,
Is the executive summary the last thing that we have to approve?
in addition to the appendices.
And that's probably nothing more than, let's make sure we at least have this in here. Staff can do the logistics on it.
Okay, next paragraph.
Next paragraph is, that's the goals and policies in this plan. I propose deleting sometimes.
Second. I propose that, other than that, we leave it the same.
Sarah Jane was saying that they don't always compete.
Yeah, if you take sometimes out, it means that they're always competing.
Yeah, so I
Fair enough.
withdraw my motion if,
I make a motion we accept it as written.
I second that.
everyone except Dave agrees. I guess I have an addition or a potential addition
For that paragraph or for the list?
for the
bullet
next,
points?
for the next paragraph. What? Before the list.
Bullet points?
So it's a new paragraph?
Potential new paragraph. So two of the things that we really struggle with were the boundaries and developing the map. So I was thinking about just actually listing out our new neighborhoods. Like, for example, we debated the boundaries of the downtown area and created neighborhoods to include the Main Street Historic District, Old Downtown Neighborhood, which is the existing R5 residential mixed use of government and education, and that ties it to the framework that we have. And it kind of pulls the plan together a little bit. So I don't know what you think about that idea.
I agree with that because I was confused. I was struggling with which ones are the distinct sub-areas. So I think are you suggesting that we list them out or call them out?
Mm-hmm. And then maybe adding a sentence saying, in addition to these areas, the plan defines parks and open space and the circulation network.
Isn't that what the first bullet's doing?
Yeah, so in replacement of that bullet.
You want to replace the first bullet?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Expand the first bullet, yeah. And I would think each with its own character and mix of desired land use may be important to maintain within those bullets.
So are
So,
you replacing it or
Like recognizing the following distinct sub-areas, is that kind of what you're saying, and then listing them, or?
I think, here's what I took from it, and tell me if I'm wrong, because I don't want to try to rewrite it and then I missed it. I think that rework the first bullet so that it includes the concept of the framework and the boundaries, names the various districts and the circulation patterns in parks, and talks about the framework. Right?
yeah.
Okay, so do we need to get some distinct verbiage on that? I mean, do we need to take that to staff to let them work it over? Okay, I can support that. I guess that means we move on to the next bullet.
So all those in favor of adding the boundaries section with Kurt and Dave against? Just listing, hey, this is what we've done in the plan.
We're going to have a locator map. We're going to have the framework maps, and now we're going to have another map too, saying the same thing?
No, it's just bullet points. This is just this, I mean, we'll get into the map at the next section, the orientation map. So,
Protecting historic property?
so the next, I guess we start going through each bullet point?
Yeah.
And protecting historic properties.
I think we should destroy them. Got no problem with that statement.
So,
I make a motion to accept as
protecting historic properties?
As is.
Okay, all those in favor of accepting as is? That is Dave against. Setting height limits. And we have a height map in the plan. Any,
I make a motion we accept it as written, as amended by Dennis.
any other comments? Should we go ahead and, Danny? Oh, all those in favor? Dave against. Parking, developing a parking management program. Can we just say parking program?
Are we going to be doing that?
Not in here.
If I had a quarter, I'd make you bet.
I'm sorry, I'm actually trying to find where,
I was actually serious.
I know.
I would think we've got no program for all that. That's determination, but I think that's certainly what the plan is recommending at this point and what council is talking about.
It's tomorrow night's
Fourth bullet.
effort.
Yeah.
And it is a management program as much as anything. It's not a plan, it's really a program in terms of how do we manage what we have and what we need. So it's talking about, you know, how long do people park, you know, where do they park, do you share parking? It gets into all the kind of larger issues as well.
And I'd love to see that expressed in there instead of general words that mean nothing, like equitable.
Okay.
So you're okay with this? Language as
No,
is?
I'm not. That's my point. That's my point. We're settling for glittering generalities again instead of detail. If there are essential elements that we need to incorporate into that parking plan, or that we expect that parking plan to incorporate, then let's put them in there.
And
We're not putting them in anywhere else, so we might as well put it in here.
so in the plan, it actually says that we are developing a parking program for downtown.
Not management, just program.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in our discussions, we made very specific recommendations regarding parking. And this would be a good place to put in some thoughts about those recommendations.
What were those recommendations?
Do you want to put those in here?
Do you,
Because, pardon?
what
Okay.
are those recommendations?
Some of those are to historic preservation, to potentially delete that parking, or that parking requirement. Go ahead.
Nothing, I'm just.
Yeah, and some other potential requirements is to delete the parking requirement for downtown altogether. And and these are the things that we extensively discussed. in the planning.
I'm kind of lost about delete the parking plan, but parking's a problem in downtown Littleton, and we're going to do a plan here. Says who?
Which
Where's
one's
that
that?
map right there?
45, which way? I keep forgetting.
There's 103 less parking places.
55, it is a problem or isn't a problem? I forgot. Don't know.
I think it's not just developing a program, but it's also revising zoning to address parking requirements. It's a combination of not just a program, but we also need to go back to zoning.
How about instead of something generic like that is equitable among business and property owners? Because, yeah, okay, well, that's like saying we want good design. Of course, nobody wants bad design. How about a program that meets varying needs for downtown? Something like that. I mean, indicate what it is we're going to be trying to do with this plan, but equitable between businesses and property owners. What about visitors, tourists, shoppers, restaurant patrons?
May I suggest developing a parking program that provides for the Main Street area that is equitable among business, property owners, and visitors to the downtown area, and that does not compromise downtown's character.
I think Janny's got a strong point there, though, too, that we really are talking about implementation of that, if you want to talk about the regulations that you want to change. So it's the parking program plus the changes if you want to include it.
But we never addressed that in the document itself that we suggested that we would reevaluate zoning. We called a parking program, I would say, could include in evaluating zoning.
But it was, I felt that that was a strong recommendation from the Planning Commission to really look at that zoning, to address the parking requirements. And I think that that would be good to come in here. Well,
So,
should we,
Forgive my ignorance, but what does zoning have to do with the park? I mean, what are we going to change on that? I guess I'm not clear.
Get rid of the anomaly that everybody decided to studiously ignore when Merle's was approved with only 6 parking places when zoning required 90.
Gotcha, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, our zoning really is written for an area other than downtown where we don't have lots big enough to provide parking on site.
Right.
It really requires parking to be provided on site. Downtown doesn't accommodate it, so we need to adjust for that. I figure what's more realistic.
Yeah, the parking requirements in zoning is huge, and that we have special site constraints in downtown that we need to account for better in our zoning.
so the motion is on the table to revise zoning to address parking requirements.
so what is that, revised zoning? Can you say that again?
Let's see.
Can you read the entire?
Yeah. Yeah, we do need to revise the zoning requirements.
What if you added and revised zoning requirements accordingly?
And revise.
Looks like
That
there's a
sounds
real
good.
wide gulf here, though. Between you think it probably should be reduced, and I think Dave says it should be increased.
No, I'm not saying that by any means. What I'm saying is, we've talked around this issue for 3 years. And to date, nobody's had the balls to put anything on the table in the way of a firm recommendation about what we should do and why, and how the different elements are going to fit together to meet a varying set of needs downtown for parking. We've talked around it for 3 years, Glenn, and
Right.
nobody wants to do anything.
But zoning's one part of that, and I think management is another. I mean, valet parking's another way. I mean, there's a lot of ways of addressing it. I'm afraid if you just say fix zoning, it
But
doesn't
only-
quite get you there.
So it's, to your point then, it is 2 separate things. Revised zoning to develop a parking program, developing a parking program and revising zoning that provides for. So we capture both. Are we missing something?
Parking program that may require amending zoning.
For a bullet like this, all we really need to do is indicate what we expect the plan to address, and that is that there are different needs, short-term, long-term, close in, farther out. That's what we need to talk about. The rest of it, you're right, that's implementation. And we're going to be addressing potential zoning changes as a result of virtually everything we have, or at least a good part of what we have in here already. We don't need to single parking out for zoning, but mention the elements of what we expect a parking plan to cover. And that is, some people need to be close in, some people can afford to be farther away because they're there longer term. Some people are stopping for 15 minutes. I'm not kissing up. Glenn, what you did for Old Town Peoria, the plan, recognized explicitly those differing needs and how you had to come up with a plan that would allow for all of those to be met. And I'm not looking for a whole section, but just
So
yes.
David, instead of calling it equitable, so where you look at the second part of that first sentence, that is equitable. So the statement more that can be addressed for purposes of serving businesses, property owners, and visitors. So at that point, each of those would have a unique need.
just recognize diverse needs and situations. That in itself, as a general guideline for a bullet, should be sufficient.
Sarah Jane, did you have suggested language?
Well, I've been trying to keep up with a rolling conversation here. Developing a parking program that manages, I would keep it in management, but
Yeah, I think I would too.
let me just tell you what I think it should be, and then you can tear that apart. How's that? Developing a parking management program and revise the zoning accordingly, that provides parking for Main Street, the Main Street area, and I think I would add in here, and responds to variable parking needs among businesses, property owners, and visitors to the downtown, and that does not compromise the downtown's character.
I think you could leave Main Street out of that. We have this ongoing debate between what's Main Street, downtown, old downtown, downtown area.
Steve?
This is very important. We need to keep, we need to add more time to it before we lose traction at where we're at. So let's add more time to it until we get this.
Make that a motion?
Yes.
Great.
So not just 5 minutes or 2 minutes or whatever, so that we can
Whatever
get
it takes
this,
for us
so
to-
we can get this corrected.
Okay, so what do you guys think of?
Second.
Okay, so everybody in favor of the motion to extend the time on parking? So we've got everybody, Dave, if not?
No, I said.
Okay, everybody. What do you guys think of Sarah Jane's suggested language?
That sounds pretty good. Anybody have a problem with it?
I like Sarah Jane's language.
And Karina, I think equitable is, I keep hearing that everywhere, that equitable is really important to the downtown business opener.
You didn't include equitable, did you?
I think,
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be.
I don't know how you
Can
define equitable.
Dave, I'm not voting for equitable.
No.
Can it be?
Define equity.
Realistically.
That's just what I hear.
I don't think it will be there no matter what we do.
Fair enough.
I don't think it'll be equitable, whatever we come up with, whatever plans. Somebody's going to.
Certainly, it's the issue that's been driving the discussion, I think, because I think the current system has been so inequitable. Just real obvious examples of inequity. And so I think that's driving the discussion, but maybe it's inherent in the result we come up with anyway.
Please, fair.
Can you restate your language in that particular section, just to make sure it's still?
Develop a parking management program and revise zoning accordingly. Let me start again. Develop a parking management program that provides parking and revise zoning accordingly for the variable parking needs of the businesses, property owners, and visitors to the downtown, and that does not compromise downtown's character.
The variable parking needs, and I think that speaks to what David requested, and I agree with that. The needs are going to be different. A definition of equitable is going to be different depending on who you talk to, so I think the proposed language will capture that, the varying needs.
Question about that, though. You're saying provides parking. So in this, we're saying who's providing the parking? Is the city providing the parking? Because that's the way a lot of people will read that. City's providing parking. And I don't think that's equitable or fair to the city. I think it needs, everybody provides parking. Business owners,
I hate to fall back on the weasel words, but recognizes, addresses, or something those diverse needs is adequate. And I still don't know why we need to specifically include zoning in this. Zoning is going to be one part of a program. And for God's sakes, drop the Main Street thing. If you were downtown Saturday and Sunday and tried to park, the parking problem is not confined to Main Street. Oh, well, it was in there the last time it got read.
So the argument was to drop provides parking. If we come up with another verb for that.
We can just take that whole phrase right out.
To develop a parking program.
Well, we got to develop a parking management program that provides
Or
parking.
them, or to just take out parking and the parking program and read zoning, those words, provides for the area. So we're not suggesting that we as a city are providing parking, but we're providing for the area as a whole, the downtown area. So I would strike the word parking between provides and for.
Can I read it again?
Yeah.
Developing a parking management program and revising zoning accordingly that recognizes the variable parking needs of businesses, property owners, and visitors to the downtown, and that does not compromise downtown's character.
That sounds great.
Second.
Yes.
I make a motion to accept that.
All those in favor? Okay, it's unanimous.
Okay, so we got a few minutes. Let's get back on the clock.
Let me just take a quick step back just so that we can, do you guys mind if we talk about process for maybe 5 minutes? For
Okay.
the next meeting? So we have to finish up the executive summary, and we need to review the appendices, and
I'm going to hand out revised copies of the appendices. Linda went through and added a lot more language to public outreach, so I think it's a lot more what we were talking about. Those are-
so there's a whole additional section.
So we got homework again?
We have enough, or we may not.
Doesn't look like a lot of changes, Dennis.
No, there aren't a lot of changes.
And then we have, in addition to that,
The primary change is just a lot more material in public outreach.
we've got the orientation maps, the zoning maps, the circulation map, the height.
We're short one?
There you go.
Ah,
Got it.
here.
So we have a lot to add to in addition. We've approved the height map, but we haven't seen what it looks like in the final. So the orientation map, the zoning map, circulation map process, the process section and the height map are what we need to add, and then to review all the appendices.
What do you mean
The zoning map, just existing zoning. Mhm. And that's in the appendix, actually, is where it goes.
It is?
Uh-huh. Or will be, once we have it.
So one of the ways we can do this is we can maybe review each of those appendices and then come back and then submit the comments to Dennis, and Dennis can take those and make the revisions before our next meeting, so we can go through and maybe approve each section.
What are you asking us to review in the appendix? That we have everything that was referred to in the body of the document, or are we also reviewing the language in the appendix?
Reviewing the language.
We are? Why?
If you have any concerns about the language, there could be,
Are these documents, isn't what's in the appendix an excerpt from a document or a document in and of itself?
No, some of it is, some of it's not. And generally doesn't have so much weight, and may not even be, it stands free, so you don't have to worry as much about the language, I would say, as long as it has material. And if you see something's wrong, I think that's more critical than actual wordsmithing.
Some of the things you find in the appendix are a summary of a much larger document.
So we had, for example, we had information on existing conditions in the plan. We took that out and put it in the appendix. We also had a section on if this plan is adopted, what's that really mean in terms of what's happening to each of these sub-areas downtown. We have information on the process. It goes through in some length in terms of what we did for the development of the plan. So it's just expanded stuff that doesn't belong in the body of the plan subdivision policy.
And also part of that is, with Littleton's future, it's kind of setting the stage for the goals, policies, and implementation strategies. So, to me, I think it's important that we review that section and kind of agree with it, because it could potentially come back to us and be used.
What would be helpful for me is if some of these appendices are just a copy of another document that there's no need to revise something that is another document that's been already approved, et cetera.
None of them are.
No, they haven't been approved.
And in the case where you said some are summaries of more and extensive, so were these summaries pulled from that document? Was there an executive summary, or is that Linda?
There was no document.
There was no document.
No, it was, some of them were in the body of the plan itself before, and we decided to take them out of the body of the plan and put them in the back, just because we wanted to focus more on the policies, on the real direction in the plan. And so we pulled out the background material from here.
So can you, and you can do this in an email, you don't have to do this now, Dennis. So can you let me know what is a summary of the comp plan? So
There is no summary of the comp plan.
I'm struggling with understanding how I can provide value here, to be quite honest with you.
Some of the pieces that are in the appendix were originally in the meat of the document, and it was felt that while it was important information, that the document, the planning document itself was becoming way too lengthy. So it was agreed to put it in the appendix. So that's some of them. And then others, Linda has added a summary of the public involvement process.
I see.
And so unlike a conventional appendix,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
So, for example, Appendix A is talking about the the current situation, the existing conditions. Appendix B is talking about what's it going to look like in the future, each of these small areas in downtown. And then Appendix C is public outreach program. Appendix D is a glossary. I've added some additional terms. I went back through the draft and looked at terms that I thought people might want to have a definition of. I haven't provided definitions. But if you'll let me know if those look good or if you want anything else added, I could do that as well. But there are just some things I thought might be helpful. And then we're talking about actually deleting the traffic counts that were in the appendix and just incorporating those in the existing conditions. There's a reference to the traffic counts.
Because we don't relate the traffic counts to anything that's in the document.
Right. And then Appendix E is citywide recommendations for sustainability, recognizing again that sustainability may be more appropriate citywide, but we want someplace to put that so it wouldn't get lost. So we put it in the appendix and saying, this is something we want to bring up later when we get into the citywide document. And then the last thing is just the acknowledgements. Make sure I spelled everybody's name correctly. Jan, let me know I misspelled hers.
And the last copy that I have of the plan is March 22nd. Is this as amended by which you provided this today?
Yes.
Were there any other, is that what we're working off of?
That's correct.
These are all the final
And
documents?
what you do not have there are the goals, policies, and implementation strategies that you've been working on. So
Okay.
you'll get that as part of the full body when we come back.
So can our goal for the next meeting be that if we provide the comments on the appendices to Dennis, and can we get to the point where we want to finalize this and send it to the editors and to graphic design?
Yeah.
Yes.
So we just have to finish the executive summary
good to
on the
me.
appendices?
I got one question. These last bullet points here, does anybody have a problem with them?
I was going to say the same thing. Accept them as is.
I second that motion. Is the old downtown neighborhood generally the area currently zoned R5, or is it the area zoned R5? Thank you.
Well, no, it's not, because the R5 includes Nevada Place, for example. And you
Okay,
know what-
that's an old debate,
Right, right.
especially now that Phase 2 is in question.
But the framework actually pulls that out. So as shown on the framework, Nevada Place has been deleted.
This is accurate then, according to what's on the framework?
Right.
Can we take a vote on that?
So just retaining the existing character?
No, all these
All
bullet
these-
points down to the end of the page, and we'll be done with this executive summary. Now, if you got a problem with it, yeah, let's work it out, but if you don't, let's run it. It's been motioned and seconded. Any
We
discussion?
vote? All those in favor? And there's Steve and Dave against. I actually think that there's probably some additions that we can make based on some of the conversations we've had.
To those bullet points, or to after the bullet points?
To those bullet points.
And after the bullet points.
After the bullet.
After the bullet points. And then we still got the second half of the first paragraph to deal with.
Right.
But
The wrap-up that you wanted to bring down from the top.
Jenny?
Can we set a date tonight that we will have this completely, all comments in by the next meeting, that there's no further comments that are going to be incorporated, like that's it? It's going to be sent out to have it fully graphically put together so that you can give a date to so basically staff knows where we're at with this and what the time frame is. Can we commit to that?
would you like to make that a motion?
I'd like to make that a motion.
I second.
So can we add a date to that to
Can we
say
add a date
by
for the next?
6/27?
27.
next meeting?
which is our next meeting, that we can commit to that date, that all comments will finally be submitted, and we will discuss them and fully have it complete to send to the graphic designers,
And does that include
and direct staff to finish what they need to finish.
a whole new document that includes the goals and policies and implementation?
The whole thing, the
Everything,
whole
ball of
thing.
wax.
Pictures, everything.
Yes, yes. But basically, then staff knows that that's it. And they can set everything accordingly and plan accordingly.
All right, all those in favor of that?
Next meeting.
And do we do the communication via email? So are we going to review each one of those sections and return comments back to Dennis? And then they can compile the comments and we can just vote on it very quickly?
Okay, we have that one paragraph that staff needs to work over.
Right.
And we have to incorporate the second half of the first paragraph somewhere at the end of this. And that should finish the executive summary.
Right.
And then we have to go through the appendices,
And
which appears to me to be pretty cut and dried.
And I guess my hope is that staff can already be working on this, so it's just the appendices that we're finally providing comments, so that we're not slowing down the rest of the document to have that.
We've been
updated.
keeping up as you've done it.
Great.
Okay.
But
But we will have to amend the executive summary based on further discussion, as I understand it.
That's one thing. I'd rather just, if we need to amend it, just get it done and not have that hanging out there.
It's not
Slow
going to
us
be
down.
perfect. I mean, it's not going to be perfect.
But I think we provided enough comment.
Yeah,
Would you agree
I agree.
that the staff should be able to go ahead with the executive summary and make the changes necessary?
I think that Sarah Jane's got the verbiage pretty well nailed down with what we kind of want. It needs a few twists or whatever. We can
What I
work
handed
it out or live with it as it is.
What I handed out was kind of a general outline of steps from now on, without dates attached. We can start attaching dates to this.
We got a date now.
And are the graphic designers going to do the maps, or is that something
Yes.
that we provide?
No, the graphic, yeah, we've got the graphic designer doing the maps first. And then, but we'll in-house do the editing and in-house do the setup and the actual organization.
What we're trying to avoid there, Linda, is to go through and set it up as a printable document and then have it edited after that again and again and again, because every time you do that, it's hugely expensive.
I guess my question is, who's going to edit it?
Kelly Nardi is volunteering.
Oh.
If she has time.
Okay.
So you can start
I
working.
trust Kelly.
Okay.
I think she's going on vacation, though.
Yeah.
We cancel that.
That's all right. We'll be done.
I'm sure she'll take it with her. She'll take that.
Make a motion, cancel Kelly's.
Send her an e-copy.
So we won't have, or a lot of the
So we may have a
photos and the
little delay in there.
captions. And it could be up to a month that it goes through graphic design, so even though we might be done with it on the 27th, we've still got the public
And
hearing.
it might be more than that, just depending on what their schedules are, because they'd scheduled for us in December. So they're not ready for us at this point, but we'll get scheduled with them as soon as we can.
I think that,
And so we don't know exactly when we're going to book it.
Kenny's motion was just to get it out of get the ball out of our court.
Well, basically, it gives the graphic designer a heads up that it's coming.
Yeah.
And that's to make room for,
And if we can get the verbiage standing still, then we have plenty of work to let the graphics catch up with us.
Knowing that it's just another starting point because we have more hearings and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Let's get it going out, right?
Sooner we get it done, and if somebody doesn't like it, then we can amend it, and we can work. Because like I said, what we got here after all of our arm wrestling and stuff here, somebody's going to hate what we wrote. I mean, they're going to say, well, you should have put this, adjective here and blah, blah, blah. I mean, we did the best we can with the limited resources we have available right now, and I think that we're doing a pretty good job. But not everybody's going to love it, so.
And one of why don't we just wait till the 27th, and it looks like we have a comp plan.
Cool.
Any other comments?
looking at the upcoming meetings, we've got workshop tomorrow night, you're all aware. We'll be back in the building, but we'll be next door in the small building department conference room. And then on Monday, the 20th of this month, the monthly Historic Preservation Board meeting will be. And on June 21st, City Council will be looking at second reading for proposed expansion of the Main Street Historic District, the two buildings that we talked about before.
That actually got continued to July 5th.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it is July 5th, so Jim Taylor will be in town. Thank you. Okay. And then July 27th, our regular meeting and study session. June 27th, excuse me. And on July 11th would be our first July meeting. So.
It is 9 o'clock. Any other comments, concerns?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second? All those in favor?
Favor, leave.